Hey everyone, welcome back to this month's, okay, I'm gonna get it right this time, .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, Stand-Up, should we add community in there? .NET MAUI Community Toolkit,
Woo.
Stand-Up, oh well, something like that. Welcome back. You know what this is about. Brandon just told me behind the scenes that he was lost without me. So I'm back to host the show. Brandon can go back to rearranging all of our cameras, and everything should be all right in the world again. So actually, last month I was giving a guest lecture at a local university about some .NET MAUI goodness. So that was pretty cool as well. But now here today, I'm back and talking about the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. How have all of you been, Sean? Unmute.
Good. Yep, I was muted. No, everything's good. I've been digging into some fun Android issues in the day
Cool,
job.
yeah.
Other than that, all good.
For the day job, you've been digging into some Android issues. I know. I've seen some nice profiler screenshots. But for fun, you've been working on some Signal R kind of gaming projects. I saw a little bit of air hockey and some drawing games, so that's pretty cool.
Yes,
Nice.
yeah, and anything to try and do a little bit more fun, get away from the day job.
Yeah. This is recorded in live. They can see this, Sean. Pedro, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Hey, awesome. Good. Is it so you had kind of like, I don't know if that was last month. That was probably the month before. You had like the rain season, right? That's done in 2 months, right? You're back to sunshine, everything's good.
No, now I'm back to home. I was living out a room for 3 months or something like that, and now I'm home again. But yeah, we have a beautiful weather outside, but it's cold. It's very cold this season.
What's very cold?
Yeah, as I say in Brazil, how do you define cold?
I mean, yeah, cold for us is like 16 degrees, 20 degrees Celsius degrees.
Yeah, okay. That's it about here right now as well, and we call that summer. So all good. And of course, Brandon, how are you doing?
Hey, Gerald. Good. Yeah, glad to have you back. I was trying to do everything last week between hosting, running, we'll say the cameras and running the screen share, and man, I was a hot mess. I even ended the stream, which really, instead of clicking the end button, I left, leaving the stream live and everybody else hanging out on YouTube. But glad to have you back. It should be a flawless stand-up this month for everybody.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you can see our whole team is distributed. I'm from the Netherlands. Sean is in the UK. Pedro is in Brazil. Brandon is in the US of A. I think you're somewhere near the Bay Area. That's what it's
California.
called.
Yeah.
California. Awesome. So, and of course, we're normally here with Vlad, but he has some well-deserved time off. So he's enjoying a little bit of summer as well. I think it was pretty hot there. So he's not with us. I think I saw him in the chat already, so he'll be there for any questions that you might have. George is saying he loves the Signal R's games by Sean. And George is actually helping us out with a pull request for the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later on as well. So Brandon, you have something to share, I think, with about the upcoming release of said .NET MAUI Community Toolkit version 1.1.0.
Yeah, so it's not as official as probably should be, but did want to share what's going on. So we have in the repo, let's see. I always forget how to get to milestones. Milestones, there we go. So for everybody who wants to keep up with what we're working on, I actually have to add the avatar view here, but we have a vNext milestone where we are tracking the things we're actively working on as a team, as a community. So instead of necessarily having a prescribed 1.1 milestone that will be released on a certain day, we'll just keep this vNext continuously updating. And so this is where you can come find out what we're working on. But yes, for version 1.1, we're pretty much ready to release it. I'm being selfish, and I'm the reason why it isn't. It's actually kind of a combination of selfishness and stupidity, or maybe ignorance. But basically, what I want to do is add in an analyzer, because to use the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, you have to initialize it. And so we ask everybody to add in the .use MAUI Community Toolkit when you say use MAUI app. So when you're in your MAUI program and you say builder.use MAUI app, you should also slap on .use MAUI Community Toolkit, and then you'll be good to go. And we have it in our docs. When you install the NuGet package, a text file will come up giving you the initialization code that you can copy paste. But who reads the docs, right? I don't read the docs. And so we've had some folks report bugs to us that the bug wasn't actually a bug. They had just forgotten to initialize the toolkit. And so we figured, why not make it pretty much foolproof, where we can add in a Roslyn analyzer that'll make sure that you've used or added .use MAUI Community Toolkit. And that way we don't have to worry about anything breaking or any false positives popping up. So wanted to get this in for version 1.1. That being said, literally here, I say I'm not an expert in Roslyn Analyzer, so I've been very, very thankful to Pedro, who's been helping me out. And so if I was better at Roslyn Analyzers, we would have had version 1.1 released already. But as soon as we can wrap this up, we'll release version 1.1. And version 1.1's got a bunch of goodies in it, which we'll touch on in just a bit.
Very cool. This is actually a very good idea. I've been watching this from the sideline, and this is amazing. Like you said, like no one is reading the docs, right? Even if you pop up a README in their face, they're gonna click it away and be like, "Hey, this is not working," including me. I do that.
Yep, same.
And then as soon as something is not working, then you go maybe read the README, right? So this is pretty amazing that you will just get warnings in your IDE, errors probably, because this needs to be in order for you to use the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So this is fixing your code with our code.
Yeah, and it's cool because it'll give you a compiler error until you add it. And the red squiggle, we've also written a code fix for it as well. So you'll just be able to right click on the light bulb and say fix the code, and it'll add it in. It'll add in the namespace. So that's the plan, at least.
Awesome.
So
yeah, exactly.
Squeeze that in.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Can't wait. So whenever that's done, we'll have version 1.1, and it has, of course, this, which is pretty amazing, but it will have a lot of other things as well for you already to use. So that's going to be cool. So another thing that we kind of need to talk about, and we've already talked a little bit about it behind the scenes, is we also have the Xamarin Community Toolkit still. We're maintaining the kind of like the Xamarin Community Toolkit, so that's focused on Xamarin Forms. But we also made a Xamarin Community Toolkit MAUI compat version. So that one is using that compatibility layer that's inside of .NET MAUI, which kind of like still allows you to use the renderers and that kind of stuff. And we've made that, well, I say we, but I think Vlad has done a lot of work with this, generating basically a MAUI compatible version from the Xamarin Community Toolkit. And what's kind of going on there is that that has been in preview for a long time because .NET MAUI was in preview. But now, the whole compatibility stuff might still not be really stable. And that's not really something that we control, because it's also maybe because of things that are inside of .NET MAUI, which just aren't great. So now we kind of find ourselves in this interesting scenario where we have to release a stable MAUI compat version, but it's not going to be really stable in all regards. So we already know that. So kind of like, where are we going to go with this? So I maybe people in the chat can chime in. I'm happy to hear people's thoughts here again. So yeah, I see a quick question, very off topic, George. My hand. I'm also going through some house construction right here, and you see, I should hire people to do that. You don't get these injuries from a keyboard. Just let me go on a keyboard, and don't let myself injure that way. So nothing serious. It will be fine. So back to the MAUI compat thing. Should we release a library for which we kind of like know it's not going to be very stable, but people are going to want to use it anyway, and some things might work, some other things might not work. Still release it as a stable version. Or should we say it's going to be kind of like preview forever, and we can use it, and some people will not work, but still a preview kind of version. That's well. What are thoughts?
Whew. Yeah. So I mean, the good news is we already have it. So we have something that folks can use, and I'm not sure how many features are necessarily working versus not working in the MAUI compat NuGet package. We've had a couple reports, so we know a couple of the controls don't work, but I think a lot of it, most of it, does. And so maybe we keep it around. It's already built into our CI pipeline, so there's really not extra work to release a new version of MAUI compat each time we release a new version of Xamarin Community Toolkit. But yeah, probably just have that disclaimer, and we could probably keep track of which compatibility items aren't working to give folks a heads up. But yeah, I mean, I still see it as like a helpful step. But yeah, as Gerald mentioned, the dream of a compatibility layer baked into .NET MAUI by the .NET MAUI engineering team didn't really come to fruition as well as we had hoped. So there's, just basically a couple things outside of our control in terms of features either dropped or not added into .NET MAUI. But yeah, I'd say as long as it's not much extra work for us. I know, Gerald, you'll have to release the NuGet package for us. But that's probably the only extra step. But yeah, I wouldn't mind just keeping track of things, and maybe we put that in a README or a doc or a wiki just to give folks a heads up before they try something and find out it's broken.
But we just said that no one reads that, so we should build a Roslyn analyzer to.
There we go. Give me 5 months. I'll get a Roslyn analyzer working by then.
Okay, yeah. So again, people in the chat, feel free to chime in. That's what we do this for. Like, if you download this version and not everything might be working, how can we best communicate that with you, or what are kind of your expectations there? Yeah, I think we just have to bite the bullet and kind of do it.
Sounds good. And I guess on our side, probably the best we can do is leave the preview tag on it. Or right now, I think it's an alpha tag on the NuGet package, because it feels disingenuous to promote something to stable where we know there's bugs and problems in it, but also those bugs and problems are outside of our control. So maybe that's the compromise. I haven't heard anybody asking about when we'll promote the MAUI compat NuGet library to stable. So it doesn't seem like, at least right now, there's a huge demand for it. But maybe if folks start wanting to use it, like I know some corporations won't allow preview NuGet packages in their source code, which, I think this is a silly rule. I understand it, but it's maybe we'll circle back to that. But the only other thing I could think of is putting an obsolete tag on things that we know aren't working. So the API will still be there when you add it into your code, but then it'll give you a little compiler warning saying that there's known issues with, I think media element was one of them. Something like that we could do.
The obsolete tag would not be a bad idea. To force the warnings to come up in the compiler then.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it would at least save the developer from opening up an issue and filing a bug report for something that's maybe a known issue.
Obsolete. Please don't open an issue. We know. Aren't there even like tags or things that you can? Isn't there like the obsolete tag? Isn't there also a warning and an error one? that you can add there? Like, obsolete is kind of like not really correct, but we can serve as a warning that way. I vaguely remember
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
I
the
know you
utility
can with
tag
a
allows us
patch
to
warning.
provide a custom message to show on the warning.
We should we can investigate that. That might be good. Yeah, because then whenever you start building, it's kind of it's still see we're still kind of like building that Roslyn analyzer now. We still say in code like, hey, look out, this might not be what you expect from it. We already know, no need to open an issue. There's not really something that we can do about it right now. Maybe put up a little wiki page on the repo or something that we'll link to, so people can read more, and we don't have.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
we're losing your
like
microphone again, Gerald.
oh, okay. I'm back. I'm presenting, and now technical issues. Okay.
It's like
Um.
your own microphone's cutting you off.
Yeah. Too much. Too much. All right, then let's just move on very quickly. What do we have more? So, Pedro, talk a little bit about pop-up fix. You've been doing pop-up fixes. Let's talk about that.
Sure. Sure. So yeah, in the past weeks, I just focus on the pop-ups for Apple platforms. So I also want to say thank you to Shane because he helped me a lot. We was in like 2 hours meeting trying to figure out what's going on there, if you ours fault or something on the MAUI side. And with that, I could be able to fix a lot of errors for iOS and macOS APIs. So on that will be on the next version that will be 1.1.0. So make sure to update your community kit package to grab all those goodies that is related to when using the shell. Now the shell content will not disappear when you present a pop-up. Now you have that background blur effect when the pop-up comes up. Also, the position and the sizing of the pop-up is fixed now. So a lot of issues is solved. Probably I saw one about the anchor property on Mac Catalyst, and that breaks the application. And I'm pretty much sure that should be fixed with those. Should be fixed on 1.1 with those chains. But if you don't, open an issue, and I will take a look on that. And please attach a repo. Upload a zip there, and that will make my life easier to fix your bug. Thank you.
Oh, that is some very good advice. Please add those reproduction projects. That will help us so much. Also for .NET MAUI, please do that. So Pedro, we're just sticking with you because I see we have more features. So what are other things that you want to highlight besides the wonderful pop-up stuff that you've been doing?
Sure. So uh, on the MAUI side, I added a new API there called the platform behavior, and now we are moving our effects from the Xamarin Community Kit to be behaviors on .NET MAUI to take advantage of the multi-target architecture. So right now we have two effects that is it's not anymore effects, and now they are behaviors. There is the icon TT color and the select alt text behaviors. So now you can use that just to use behaviors normally from the Xamarin Forms era, and you are good to go. So like if you are migrating a Forms application that uses that the Xamarin Community Kit effect, you just need to refactor your code to use a behavior. So that will be a breaking change, but you don't need to learn anything new. Just change that to behavior and be happy.
Sounds good. And Pedro, for anybody who hadn't been following along in our saga, or I guess your saga about effects in .NET MAUI, why aren't we using effects anymore in .NET MAUI?
Sure. So the effects is still supported on the .NET MAUI side because of compatibility stuffs, but the effects history is like effect is like a behaviors, and where you want to customize your control, but you need to touch the platform specific code to customize your control. In the Forms era, that was not possible doing to behaviors because behaviors cannot access the platform specific codes because Forms was not built in the multi-target architecture. And since MAUI is on the multi-target architecture, we can take it. We don't need the effects anymore. We can access all the platform specific code from the shared layer, and with this and with that, that API will not, from some comments on PRs and issues on the .NET MAUI repo, I could see that effects will not take too much improvements on the lifetime and maybe be deprecated. And with that, I bring this idea of creating a behavior that works very well uh, with platform-specific code, called the platform behavior. So it's just a class, but they use it on XAML or in C# on your code. You just use as a normal behavior. And that, on my humilde opinion, fixes an issue from behaviors because the own attached method does not execute it automatically on behaviors. You need to clean up that by yourself. So, I mean, in other words, you can use this platform behavior to normal behaviors if you want to that be cleaned automatically by you, or use that if you want to customize your custom controls without creating anything new handler or any new control or using the mapper property.
Yeah, and shout out, it hasn't been published yet, but or Pedro just wrote a whole blog post about effects and behaviors and .NET MAUI and how to customize controls. And that'll be published to the official .NET MAUI Microsoft blog. So devblogs.microsoft.com. Keep an eye out for that, because
Cool.
if I'm being honest, this is where I learned a lot about effects and behaviors. And yeah, the platform behavior API is really, really cool, really powerful. And Pedro goes into a lot of detail explaining why. So thank you, Pedro. And yeah, everybody keep an eye out for a new blog post on the .NET blog coming soon from Pedro.
Awesome. That's going to be good. Yeah, I love, the product is so big, like .NET MAUI and .NET MAUI Community Toolkit as well. I sometimes learn some stuff about my own product as well, so that's really nice. Okay, so did we get all the new features? I think we talked about a lot of them, and I want to hear Sean talk a little bit. So we also have a little bit about AI service collection. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's a proposal that's been put forward. I think actually Brandon's done a fair amount of the communication with the person that opened it, but it's aimed at trying to simplify view and view model registration with Shell, with and without Shell, I guess. So ultimately it will boil down to one line in your MAUI program.cs when you want to register a pair.
Yeah, let's see if I can find a... There we go. So here's a good example. And yeah, what I'd like to do is bring this up for a vote today. And there's also a good discussion we've been having in the comments of this proposal about which API to use. So there's two options in this proposal, which is really cool. But the goal is to add in just a simple helper method that will allow us to write less code as .NET MAUI developers, because we're most likely going to be using dependency injection. We're most likely going to be using Shell. And for all of that, then that means we have to add in our services. So, or add to iService collection, our pages, our view models. And so, Ryan came up with this great proposal that what if we had add transient view and view model, and then you just put it in your view and its associated view model there, and it'll add it to the service collection. The other option is that we just have one method called add view and view model and pass in a service lifetime. So this one defaults to transient because we figure that's what most view model pairings will be using and should be using. Like I shouldn't say won't. You're less likely to have a bug in your code if you use a transient versus a singleton for your views and view models. But yeah, so this one's a little simpler. There's just one method, add view and view model, and then the option to add it with a shell route if you want to pass in a shell route. The second option down here has basically, it's spelled out. So you don't pass in as a parameter, whether it's transient, singleton, yada, yada, yada. We do that for you. So we'll say add transient view and view model, add singleton view and view model. And so, yeah, this is a proposal. It's really, really, really detailed. This might be the best proposal we've ever had, including the ones I've written. Tons and tons of detail here on the implementation as well. But wanted to bring it up to the team because I think this would be helpful. And really, our question going forward is, do we want to do option 1, where we just say add view and view model and default to it always being a transient, and if you for some reason want to make it a singleton, you can? Or do we go the more verbose route and explicitly say add transient view and view model, which maybe that's better for discoverability because people are used to saying add transient already, and this would pop up in your IntelliSense, or verbosity is never a bad thing in general. So, yeah, let's go around the circle. What's everybody think? Oh, did we lose Sean?
Oh no!
I guess we'll come back to Sean.
I was like, nope, I can't do this. Yeah, so my first kind of thought with this is like, for the whole concept, basically, like, whoa, okay, should we do this? Because I think we've talked about this before. Like, we don't want to turn into an MVVM framework. We also already have that under the Community Toolkit umbrella. So, but this, I'm on board with this one because it only kind of adds helper methods to make it a little bit easier, right? Because you're going to do this anyway. And now you have to write kind of like 2 lines for all of this, while these are usually pairs, right? So this totally makes sense. One thing that I've always been using the framework, the MVVM framework for exam reforms, Fresh MVVM, which does a lot by naming convention, which is something that we might consider, although then we kind of get into the area maybe of an MVVM framework where you just say, I want to register view model, and you just give it the one and it will kind of like infer the other one, but maybe that's a version 2. For these options, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I have to agree with George and Vlad. I see that popping up in the bottom of the screen right now. I think I like the second one better. Like you said, Brandon, better discoverability, add transient things is something that people are already kind of like searching for. The other one, because the service lifetime dot singleton, that is something that we then also introduce, right? That's not an enum that already exists. So, we then suddenly have this new API. Maybe at some point .NET MAUI introduces something like that, or .NET introduces something like that, and we are suddenly stuck with 2 APIs doing the same thing. So I kind of lean toward the second option as well. And it seems everyone agrees. So I think we don't even need to vote between ourselves anymore. It's just decided by the community.
I will say, yeah, the community is strongly for option 2 so far. Pedro, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a good idea to have those. I mean, I love help methods that make my life easier. And also, Vlad put a question on a really good question on the YouTube comments. Like, do you need different lifetimes for page and view model? And yeah, I can see like sometimes we could have different lifetimes. Could have Chris applications there. So can we provide that, or if we need that, we need to go to the old way and set them separately?
That's a good question. I personally can't think of a situation where you need that, but yeah, I guess the developer could always fall back to the original APIs and just say add scoped or add transient or add singleton. So I don't know if that's necessarily a blocker here. But yeah, I will say the idea behind this proposal was certainly that the view and the view model would always have the same lifetime. That was the assumption for sure. It didn't even think it might be that might be different.
Also, to be honest, I didn't look too much on this proposal, but I saw that we have a shell built-in one for holds and stuff like that. But from shell, we can create a page using a route factory. So maybe we can ask for a overload for that as well. Because right now I believe that we are just using the roads and the page, but we can create a page using a road factory that allows the developer to create a page in the more powerful way, you know.
Oh, interesting. Uh, so is that different? Because yeah, with the shell stuff, basically it's just saying routing dot register route,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
that, that
adding
is
your.
overload on that method, register route on shell.
You should scroll up a little bit, Brandon, because we're in front of the code
What?
that you're
Oh, this
trying
way.
to show.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly that routing dot register route. There is overload that instead of passing the type of the view, you can specify a factory method to create your view that
Oh,
accepts. Yeah,
cool.
no, that accepts just the factory object.
So yeah, like one more overloaded method for with this with shell routes that
Hmm.
instead of just taking in the route could also have another parameter for the factory.
Yes, that is
Cool.
correct.
Okay, I like that. Uh, I'll jot that down while we're chatting about it.
And there
Also,
was. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, okay. I believe that you already covered that, but like we can, I mean, the MVVM, any view can have a view model, right? So not only pages, but like if you have a very complex control, like a composition of controls, you can have a view model for that. Or so can we use those methods to attach to create this link between view and view model for controls or just for pages?
Yeah, so actually we chatted about that in the comments, and what we landed on. Let's see. Not sure if the proposal up here has been updated, but yeah. So right now it is pointing to or constraining to MAUI controls page. But what we're going to do is actually change that to T view will just be pointing to a bindable object, because bindable object is actually where the binding context property lives. And so once we do that, then yeah, we could use this for any view model pairing, because fun fact for anybody who hasn't played around with it before, you don't only have to use view and view model for a whole page, a whole content page. You can actually have what I call mini view models for each of the views in that page, which is pretty cool. And heck, we even do it for pop up in the Community Toolkit sample app. So yeah, we'll be good to go there.
But this only kind of like registers your. This only does the registration. Like if you would, this would be the exact same as if you would write add transient homepage, add transient homepage view model, right? It
Yep.
doesn't actually hook up like the binding context or something.
Right. So yeah, just literally an easier way to add your views and view models to your MAUI app builder that allows you to
Isn't
write
that
less
kind
code.
of isn't that maybe kind of like a pitfall then that people will kind of expect that it's already hooked up then now as well?
Yeah, good point.
Good question. So yeah, basically like we'd get bug reports where
Mm.
folks complain that
I registered my view and view model, but it doesn't. The binding doesn't work.
I don't know, because the way the API is designed right now, using generics and constraints, we wouldn't be able to do that. If they passed in the concrete object, then we could check the binding context equals the view model and do it if it's not. But then that kind of defeats the purpose of lazy loading.
Yeah.
So, um, I don't know. That could be, gosh, that could be a blocker.
Sorry.
Or it's something we just we outline in the XML comments and say something along the lines of like warning or caveat. This doesn't do any MVVM stuff for you.
Okay. Some stuff
That's a
to
good
think
question.
about.
Ah, well, Sean's back.
Yay!
So,
sorry, my internet died, and the dog wanted to come in.
So yeah, Sean, what do you think? I know you've been pretty involved in the chat on this proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't actually considered the point that Gerald just made, which is a very
Gerald
good point.
ruined it for
Me neither.
everybody.
I just made it up.
Yeah, I mean, anything to simplify the code makes sense. Now, people could potentially still fall into the same pitfall without this. We are just, in theory, we're reducing the number of lines of code that they have to write. So, as long as we can supply some level of documentation that no one actually wants to read, it might still add some value.
Right on. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's pause on the vote then, because I think we're all seeing some potential for future issues opened up around this. So yeah, I've already taken these notes. I'll ping Ryan, who opened this proposal, and see what he thinks about. Maybe there's a better naming for the API that we can use. Like instead of explicitly saying like add view and view model. Well, I don't know what we would change it to, but just maybe there's something we can do. But yeah, I'd say at the worst case scenario, add it to the XML comment so it shows up in IntelliSense. Add it to the docs, and hope for the best. Hope folks read the documentation. But okay,
All of our
I'm comfortable
users
with moving forward.
As
Alright,
a crazy
cool.
thought, could you use an analyzer to say, well, you're saying that these two are paired together. You're not setting that type on the binding context.
Maybe.
I think we should just rename the method to register view and view model, but beware it doesn't automatically set the binding context for you.
Perfect.
The method name wraps around at least 3 times.
Let's go.
Like-
All right. So I think we have another proposal vote, which has to do with on-screen size. That sounds a little bit like on-platform, on idiom. Now we have on-screen size. Pedro, what this is all about?
Sure. So this is a proposal that Carol bring to us, and she already has a nugget for Xamarin Forms, and I believe .NET MAUI will be releasing soon. And it's just like markup extensions that help you to write more responsible UIs, but it's not responsible in a way like if you resize your screen, the elements will be resized. But like when you are running in a small device with small screens, the UI will have different size from the larger or extra larger screen. So you can set that before during the development stage, and automatically that will take care about the sizes for you depending on which screen size you are. From the last month, the issue was that from his original implementation, she has a big list of devices and screen sizes, and that is one thing that I mentioned that we don't want to maintain because every time that some manufacturer release a new device, we should go there and update the list, and also be a big list. So we started to do some researches, and for Android, we found the API that just give you the screen size. So that looks like a charm. And we solved the issue for Android. For iOS, we are still looking for something. We found a code on Stack Overflow that has an equation that calculates the size, and that works very well until iPhone 11. But on iPhone 12 and 13, Apple changed the way they build screens, and the equation doesn't work anymore. So we need to find a new equation, or think if you want to have the equation that will work for all the devices. And if you see that we are in new devices, we use some hard-coded information. But yeah, we still are on there, but a lot of we don't need to maintain a big list anymore. So that is a huge win. And for desktop, you just for right now, for the first version, I talked with her, and you agree that's just set for large or extra large for all the desktop implementations, because comparative to mobile, even a 14-inch MacBook is a large screen.
Right on. So, yeah, I know we chatted about this last month at our stand up, and I remember we had a couple questions, but to be honest, I don't remember the questions. So, yeah, Pedro, is this ready to move forward for a vote?
Yeah, but keep in mind that for Apple platform, we probably need to maintain a small set of device configurations, because, as I mentioned, the formula that we use, it works for all iPads and iPhones, but starting on iPhone 12, that equation doesn't give the screen size precisely anymore. So probably for iPhone 12 and 13, that is the normal, the mini, the Pro, and the Pro Max, we need to keep those values hard coded. And
Okay.
probably the future ones.
Gotcha. Scares me a little bit, but maybe we can figure out another way to avoid hard coding the values in the future. But for right now, it doesn't seem too unmaintainable. But by the time the iPhone 20 rolls out, hopefully we'll have figured something out by then. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's give it a vote. Here, let's bring back. Boop. Does anybody else have any things to add before we do a show of hands? All right. Well, let's see. Raise your hand, everybody who approves this and wants to move forward with adding it to the toolkit. Wow, unanimous.
Left
All
us in
right.
suspense, Gerald.
Yeah, and I was gonna.
Sweet. Well,
Yes.
congratulations, Carol. Congratulations, Pedro. We'll shift this to approved, and we can start cranking out some code.
Yep.
Woohoo.
Let's
All
just send
right.
her a message.
Awesome. So, let's see. Oh, shoot. Got like, 10 minutes left. So,
Yeah, we gotta move quickly. Actually, let's just with just 10 minutes left. Oh, you gonna say something more about this, Brandon, or is this just a coincidence that this is coming up?
I'll just jam through real quick. So, I was going to show
All right.
off this analyzer, but we already talked about this. So, FYI, there's a pull request open for this.
Cool.
We also have the pull
Yes.
request open for avatar view.
That was one I was going to mention because we have George right here in the chat. So, woohoo! He's been doing some great work. The avatar view has been something that lives in the Xamarin Community Toolkit, but we didn't get around it ourselves to port it to the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. And now, power of the community, because this is the Community Toolkit, George is helping us out here. So I think there has been a lot of activity on this PR, going back and forth with some feedback. George taking that up very good. And yeah, how far are we with this? People working on this?
It's looking really good. George did a great job. So thank you, George. If anything, George just did too much work. We've actually been going through and pulling out some properties that just duplicated stuff that's already there. So for example, like George had properties for the top padding, the bottom padding, the left padding, the right padding. And the conversation was basically, well, hey, there's already padding. Let's just use that. Let's not make it too complicated. And if I can, I'm gonna pull up. Let's see if I can pull up this picture here. Boom. Check this out. So this is just a screenshot from the avatar view page that currently exists in the sample app that George wrote. And so these are all the different ways you can use this avatar view. So at the base of it, by default, you kind of get a circle with some text in it, no colors, but you got a nice little border. And then if you want, you can add your image. So these are great for any app that shows a profile picture. You can customize the borders. So you can see, I kind of cut it off up here, but at the top of the Microsoft building, like this one's a little bit more rounded. This one's a little more circular. Actually, down here at the bottom, there's some really good custom borders. So this is going to be a really, really awesome control. And like I said, George has done a great job on implementing it.
Absolutely.
And so if you want to share that with everybody, get everybody excited. This will probably land in version 1.2. Because hopefully we'll be pushing out 1.1 next week. Pending. Pending how good
you heard it here first.
Analyzers.
Cool. All right. So we got that one. Then Vlad has been doing some great work as well with the expander, which is also a control, which came from the Examiner Community Toolkit. And now he's making an effort to bring that also to the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So has any of you done a little bit of testing with this? I know the expander for the Examiner Community Toolkit was sometimes not in every situation perfect. So I hope we can iron out some of the bugs here.
Yeah, I took a review and some tests, and we needed to work a little bit to bring that to list view and collection view. Looks like the measurement stuff is not doing a great job there. But I don't know if it is like something on our end or on the collection view or list view control. But yeah, need to take a look on that, because that was also an issue on the Xamarin Community Toolkit era.
Cool. So that is ongoing. I hope that we can pull that into the same version 1.2.0. Then we have already 2 major features coming over from the Examiner Community Toolkit. And with each feature coming in, we will have less and less need for that MAUI compat version, with all our Roslyn analyzers telling you that features might be broken out of the box. So that will be great. So I see we got the open PRs. That's this. We got a couple of discussions, which we don't really have that much time for, but maybe just start with one, see how far we can get. So let's start with this bindable property when making custom content view and some more source generation, because together with Roslyn analyzers, source generation is pretty cool as well. So who can tell something about this?
Sure, I'll kick it off. This is just really, really cool discussion as opened around when you have to make a bindable property. Like if you, for example, look at the source code for the toolkit, we have to create a lot of these bindable properties so that folks who consume our APIs can do so with MVVM and bindings and iNotify property changed. So there's a lot of overhead in writing these. So like public static read only, bindable property, blah, 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 create, blah, 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 blah. And the proposal here is, what if we just had an attribute? So if you wanted to have a property called card title, you slap a bindable property attribute on it, or maybe you can customize it a bit. And then all this code, this property with the getters and setters that say get value, set value is done for you. The bindable property, the static read only, all this stuff is done for you. So what I like about it is, even if we don't add this as, say, like a public feature, a public API to the toolkit, I wouldn't mind consuming a library like this just for our own work to make our own lives easier, because we could probably delete 1,000 lines of code by using this. But
is this something? Is a bindable property very specific to .NET MAUI stuff? Is there other frameworks actually using this? Okay.
Yeah, actually, fun fact: this was opened on the MVVM toolkit.
Oh, see? Yeah.
And exactly. Sergio brought it over here for that exact reason.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, WVF had the dependency property, didn't they? Which would have been a
that's right.
slight variation on it.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think this is a really cool idea. You know, the MVVM toolkit, Gerald, like you mentioned, kind of set this new standard
Hmm.
where attributes can remove a lot of boilerplate code for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, the only, well, not the only, the big questions I have around this is, you know, what else, right? Like how do people create bindable properties? Like I know how we've done it in the toolkit, but there's different ways to do it. Like there's bindable property.create, there's bindable property.create read only. There's different ways of passing in these parameters. So how do we handle all that with the attributes? That's my big question. So I'll drop the link to this discussion in the chat. Please, anybody out there who knows more about attributes than I do and is good at designing APIs for them, let us know. Let us know what we can do to make this attribute the best, and then yeah, we can add it to the toolkit, and all of us can leverage it for all of our stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like you say, there's a lot of options here, so it would be interesting how to capture that all in kind of like one attribute, or yeah.
Yeah, and maybe we do a V1 of this, or first release, where we have a bindable property attribute and maybe a bindable read-only property attribute, and those handle like the default cases. And then as folks in the community start consuming it and saying, man, I wish I could customize this
Mhm.
property, then we could slowly add things in. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see it as a blocker, but
No, just
Yeah.
start small and reiterate on that.
yeah.
Cool, I like it. I like it. Yeah, also, like, do we have, I think the toolkit MVVM ones are kind of like simple, right? They are just, say, observable property or whatever they are called exactly. And they don't have a lot of options, I think, right? It's just you put that on it and it generates the code, but it doesn't have a lot of variations like the bindable property.
So good point. The new release, the latest release, preview 4 of version 8 of the MVVM toolkit, actually added in some additional options. So there's let's see, there's an enum that you can use to define which or how many options you want. And then yeah, for the attributes, they also have properties. So you can set like what's one, like also notify property changed for, I think, is another attribute, and you pass in the property is a string of which other property you want to notify about. So yeah, we've got some good examples in the MVVM toolkit that we can definitely leverage.
That was exactly my question. Like, can we borrow some inspiration from them and see how they solve these problems so we don't have to?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we're coming up on time, only a few minutes left. So I think it's not enough to start kind of like the next discussion on do not throw exceptions in code which can be written in XAML. And I'm intrigued what this is all about. It's hard to do. So in most cases, application guys.
Basically, XAML doesn't allow you to write try-catch blocks. And so if we have a control that will be consumed in XAML, what's the best way of handling these kind of things? And my take on this is we shouldn't have like a blanket statement like don't throw exceptions, period, because we already do a bunch of validation for oh gosh, Sean, what are those? The one-way
the converters.
The converters, yeah, the base converters. So yeah, like for example, those check to make sure that say like if you're outputting to a string, that the value coming in can be converted to a string, kind of thing. So I think there's good exceptions like that where you're literally you're consuming one of our controls, one of our converters in a way that wasn't intended. And so boom, crash. We don't know how to handle that as a toolkit. But I also see Vlad's point where maybe there is a valid use case, and now we're crashing your app. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good topic to bring up. I mean, I'm also the guy here that uses XAML the least, so maybe my opinion doesn't matter too much. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting topic.
Cool. All right. So find the discussion there. Brad is going to paste the link in the chat right now. Chime in if you have anything to say about it. We're curious to hear your opinion. And I think that's kind of like all the time that we have right now. So I think we answered some questions already during our time here in the chat, whatnot. If you have one, a very quick one, please shout it now while I wrap this up. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this stream, and hopefully you'll be with us next month, the first Thursday of every month. I think there is not the hour right before, but the hour before that, you have the .NET MAUI stand-up, community stand-up, and then you wait a little bit. You have some time to drink a coffee or do whatever makes sense in your time zone in that time, and you can join us. So thank you so much, and until next time.